We students and professors and PhD researchers from Italian university are used to study the employment law only from a technical, juridical focus. We are not used to also study the implications between economics and human rights and politics with the law. But from this discussion, we are understanding that it's important to open our minds. So, what is the message you can give us as Italian students and Italian researchers from a civil law country to face the challenges of the employment law, employment relationships in the recent years?
First, I wouldn't be too hard on Italian academics and labor lawyers and students and researchers. This is a problem the world over, that there is a view of law which is technical and internal and not connected to other disciplines and not interdisciplinary, and it can be studied on its own. In an important sense, that's true. I mean, we have law schools for a reason. Lawyers do add something. They have a knowledge that other people don't do. But in order to be a good lawyer, and knowledge other people don't have, but in order to be a good lawyer, you need not only the technical knowledge about how to make things legally work. One needs to know a lot more about life in general, about why we have laws. So to go back, my view is there's a false distinction between internal, pragmatic, legal, and philosophical, external, interdisciplinary. I believe in order to be a good pragmatic lawyer, a good practicing lawyer, you have to be a good philosopher. So the technical issues you're dealing with about if you have a client, whether it's a union or an employer, and they're wondering whether these are employees or not employees, or whether they're independent contractors, or they're in a commodity chain, and who's responsible for producers at the bottom of the chain, or the people at the top of the chain responsible. These are not technical questions. These are questions that can only be answered by understanding the limitations of our approach to labor law. And that's why I think the capability approach is so important, that it exposes the current theory. The current theory is labor law is about relationships between employers and employees who have a contract of employment, and if we can't find a contract of employment because A, the contract is of the wrong kind, it's an independent contractor contract, or there's no contract at all, you're at the top of the chain and there's many contracts and there's no contract between the top of the chain and the bottom. That idea is a problem. That's what I'm saying. In the modern world, as methods of production change, to be tied to the traditional view of labor law, the narrow view of labor law, it's about employers and employees and contracts and inequality of bargaining power, and we have to correct for the inequality between workers and employers. That, I think, is a problem that's getting in our way. It forbids us, it prevents us from solving the problems of supply chain responsibility. It causes great difficulties in coming to grips with the gig economy. It makes it impossible for labor law to have anything to say about the informal economy. In vast parts of the developing world, the majority of workers work in the informal economy. Not just that they're employees who are outside, they're really employees, but they're not recognized. But they're not employees. They don't have an employer, they don't have a contract, they don't have anything that looks like the standard setup that the standard story demands that we look for. So I'm saying capability approach enables us to say that's too narrow a view of labor law. We need a bigger view of labor law that will enable us to more easily deal with supply chains, deal with the gig economy, deal with the informal economy. And so these big issues actually turn out to be, these philosophical issues, turn out to be what's deciding concrete cases. So as long as judges and lawyers think they know what labor law is, and they have this sometimes very implicit, not articulated, just natural instinct. Oh, I know what labor law is. It's about contracts of employment, blah, blah, blah. And as long as legislators draft laws that are built around this model, and as long as the ILO thinks that this is the model and makes conventions about freedom of association between employers and employees, well, we're stuck in that model. And there's a very famous line that I use a great deal from Lord Keynes. Keynes, the great British economist who wrote a very famous book, The General Theory, in the introduction says, the problem is not with the new ideas, the problem is always with the old ideas, getting them out of our head. So I believe that's a large part of what the capability approach is doing. It's not so much that the capability approach is absolutely the right answer, although I think it's a very powerful, new, liberating way of thinking. Maybe there will be a better way of thinking beyond the capability approach. But it's challenging us to see that, well, if you don't like a capability approach, you actually have an approach. It's the traditional approach. It's about inequality of bargaining power and contracting between workers and employees and subordination, all that stuff. And it exposes that and says, we can make you, as practitioners, as academics, see clearly the world, the frame, the mindset, the picture that we are living with. And sometimes these pictures can hold us captive. They can become cages that we don't even know they're there because we're so used to living within them. And the idea, what I find fascinating about Sand and Nussbaum and the capability approach is it offers a way of challenging that way of thinking. First seeing that we are in that cage and then perhaps offering us another way of thinking. So, that may sound like a difficult sell or a proposition or a way of thinking, but I actually do believe this is true. So in my students, for students in Canada and wherever I go, when I'm teaching in labor law, we spend a lot of time worrying about this general framework. We have to do a lot of the detail just to know something about some legal system. But we're trying to get people to think not about the details for the sake of the details, but to see that these details instantiate a way of thinking about labor law. And our big problem now is not the details. Our big problem is our way of thinking. That's what's getting in our way of deciding concrete cases, of reform of the ILO at the international level. So that's been my cause for the last while.
Thank you.
Thank you.